Welcome to part 2 of my Theories and Theorists presentation, and this part is on Jerome Bruner and his spiral curriculum. Jerome Bruner was born in 1915 out in New York City, and actually just died a year ago in June, almost 101 years old. So he had an expansive life and a contribution to our society. In fact, in Britannica Encyclopedia said that he was instrumental in beginning the study of cognitive science and the field of educational psychology, which also ran parallel with Piaget's study and research with the stages of cognitive development. Backing up, he received a doctorate in psychology from Harvard in 1947 and later returned there to teach for 15 years. It was during his stay there that he did much research about educational and cognitive psychology. He also spent 10 years in Oxford at the University of Oxford, England, where he was a key participant and leader of research and writings about early childhood education. He became, along with John Dewey, Lev Vygotsky, others, became part of a curriculum reform movement. And the social context, I think, is essential in regards to Jerome's theories, is that he was living in the changeover of the modern era of education following World War II, the era of Sputnik, when the federal government was becoming more involved in education and using education to promote public policy. And they began to fund and try to improve the math and science curriculums in the schools. Also, Alan Turing and his contribution to the invention of the computer as we know it really impacted Bruner, not only as he foresaw the rapid expansion of knowledge and change due to technology, but also in how Turing was attempting to create a universal machine which would use simple actions to accomplish complex tasks at a very rapid rate. And Bruner writes about that in The New Educational Technology. Now, some key ideas. This is the foundational one, and we'll talk about this more in depth later. Any subject can be taught to any child at any age in some form that is both honest and powerful. But to back up just a bit, Jerome wrote in 1962 this introduction to his article, The New Educational Technology. He really felt like there had to be this underpinning of an educational philosophy, and it needed to be invested in, and teachers need to be trained in it, kind of a R&D, if you will, research and development. That had to be foundational before there could be proper educational practice. And so these are some of the underpinnings, some of the foundations of his educational application of the spiral curriculum. One is that instruction needed to be relevant both socially and personally. He writes about this in his book, Relevance of Education. He also talks about the will to learn, and that teachers need to capitalize on that intrinsic drive that we all have to learn, that is not relying upon external forces or reward, but it's part of who we are. And it's there's a drive to achieve competence. We get interested in what we get good at. And there's also a strong tendency to look to a teacher or parent to model oneself after and one's dreams of achievement. This is called identification. So it places the teacher in a powerful relationship to drive the will to learn in a student. Another few proposed strategies for teaching is that educating should not focus only on canons of truth, but on problem-solving, real-life situations. It should be a shift from teacher-centered learning to a focus on the unknown and the speculative, inquiry-based learning, especially in the areas of the social sciences. Students and teachers should be seekers rather than knowers, and that knowing is a process, not a product. Also, another strategy or strategies for teaching would be to share the process of education with the learner. Let the students help set the learning goals. And then finally, we see this concept of scaffolding. And this is a matching of the child's growth trend. It's not too hard, but challenging enough to lead them to a place where a student can do it independently rather than be dependent upon constant instruction. And then the teacher backs off and allows for that independent process of learning. Here's a Calvin and Hobbes comic I couldn't resist throwing in because it so portrays this idea of relevant learning. Why in the world am I waiting in the pouring rain for a school bus to take me somewhere I don't even want to go? I go to school, but I never learn what I want to know. Some key writings of Jerome Bruner's that relate to education was his first book, 1960, I believe, The Process of Education. This was the foundation for his spiral curriculum. Further books was Toward a Theory of Instruction, The Relevance of Education, and The Culture of Education. All very interesting resources that are very deep and but really provide a foundation of educational philosophy. Let's look at theories in action. Spiral curriculum. Hardin and Stamper define spiral curriculum as topics where topics within a subject get revisited with increasing degrees of depth and learning. We'll come back to these key terms as we go through these applications for instruction. And these are based on Bruner's book, Toward a Theory of Instruction. First, the predisposition for learning. Based upon the social aspects and the relationship between the teacher and the student that we talked about earlier, this creates an experience that gives students a predisposition towards learning. It activates curiosity and a willingness to explore alternatives. And a teacher has to work towards maintaining that predisposition by giving it direction and helping the student set goals so it doesn't become scattered or random. Then we have an optimal structure for learning, which where the teacher uses these methods of learning, inactive, iconic, and symbolic, which appear throughout his writings, and how the students learn initially through taking action on it by touching and feeling and being able to and then also moving on to visually interacting, sensory hearing and visually seeing the information, being able to interact with it that way, and then finally moving to a higher level of more abstract, symbolic, which is thinking about it, discussing, asking questions. And that is all part of the sequence or the optimal structure. And but there has to be that ability to simplify, bring it down to a level of even a young child, and being able to focus through the use of economy, focus a topic down to its simplest structures so that even a very young child can interact with algebraic concepts or through touching and feeling objects and manipulating them, for example. Then we have the sequence of learning, which leads students through instruction and re-instruction of a body of knowledge to increase their ability to understand it and use what is being taught. Then we have the nature and pacing of feedback in the process of learning, where it doesn't come too soon, where they won't understand or won't be relevant to them. It just is extra baggage in their brain. And it doesn't come too late, where teachers miss the opportunity to give that needed guidance to help students make choices in their learning experiences. And the result is growth and mastery. There's some limitation and critics of the spiral. I'm going to start with Brian Gibbs, a very interesting article and very valuable and practical in scope that he wrote not too long ago. saying spiral curriculum is correct in concept but wrong in scope. It's just too big of a process and too many variables to in this K through 12 deal. It needs to be compressed into a single year of a student's life, and making use of not only scaffolding but also de-scaffolding, kind of building independence, and then sometimes breaking down those learning tasks into smaller pieces so that kids can then master more difficult and more complex tasks. Hardin and Stamper bring out in their article that spiral curriculum, Jerome Bruner's stuff is good in concept, but there was never a successful, comprehensive, large-scale implementation of his concepts, which is true. But it is a good concept, but it is widely applied and embedded in today's curriculum. According to Brian Gibbs, we see this in math curriculums. This one in particular, which I'm familiar with, keeps bringing around those concepts, just building upon in complexity and more knowledge. Also, our state standards build upon this thing, where you see a concept presented in 6th grade, and then it's once again, it's with a little bit more complexity. It shows up again in 8th grade and in 9th grade, 10th grade. How theories in action. Upon this spiral curriculum, Jerome wasn't satisfied with just a philosophy. He wanted to put it into action himself. And so he took on September 1979, there was a gathering of a conference of scholars and academics for the social sciences that had this conference. And in I'm sorry, that the date is wrong, but from out of that, the book, The Process of Education, was written. And following that, Jerome Bruner took a leave of absence from Harvard, founded the Educational Services Incorporated, and began to build this comprehensive curriculum that satisfied his educational philosophies of the spiral curriculum, in the making use of the humanities and the social sciences that they were excellent way to fulfill his visions of what education should be, of starting children at a very young age to begin to teach them important concepts. And he developed this social studies, elementary social studies curriculum that was government funded. And government funded. It included 60 lessons with 6 sections, studying various animals and also a nest-lick Eskimos. And you can actually find images and downloads of original documents on macosonline.org. And it involved, instead of textbooks and lectures, it involves hands-on activities with books and booklets and films and games and videos and posters, all these things that kids could interact with and learn. Now, the political and cultural climate have really affected Bruner's goal, and that in the 1970s, people are distrustful of anything federal government, and also the conservative. Obviously, his curriculum had a lot of Darwinian theories and multicultural type things, which was really not accepted. And in fact, in 1975, there was even congressional hearings about this. Here's just some images of the social studies. I think I don't have time to show that video there, but an example, you can go on macosonline.org and see that. Just in conclusion, Bruner concluded in his in an article he wrote, "We are indeed on the edge of a great period of revolution, and if our zeal were too easily assuaged, it would be a great pity if our zeal were to be easily assuaged with partial victory. We do well to recall that most revolutions have been lost precisely because they did not go far enough." seems to me that that's precisely what happened in Jerome Bruner's spiral curriculum.